And since I know you all loved the picture of the river in last week's video, I have another one. I found myself just engulfed in ducks. Very cool. It was like an endless stream of ducks. Hello and welcome back to another weekly update on Final Parsec. I'm changing up our format just a little bit this week. I usually record snippets throughout the week as I'm working. I try to do demos as I find that I meet milestones, but this week I'm trying to just do all my shooting and editing on the final day. Last week I ended up with an 18-minute video where I demoed the same feature twice, but had, slightly different perspectives on it, so I didn't feel like I wanted to throw away either one in editing. I'm finding recording all of this footage that's a bit disjointed throughout the week is making editing harder on me. I've spoken in the past about how this is something that I'm kind of new at and is a bit of a challenge for me, and it's definitely super time consuming. So in my hope to maybe start to get these out actually on the Friday that I intend to get them out on instead of Saturday or Sunday or even the next week, I want to take this new approach to just doing all of my stuff on Friday and see if I end up with more of a story to tell and a more cohesive bit of recording that is then in turn easier to edit and hopefully produces a better quality video for all of you following along and watching. For those of you who are new here, I'm Bear, and I've been a software developer my entire career, and about a month ago I quit to work on Final Parsec full time. My vision for Final Parsec is to create tools and share information that empower hobbyist and indie game developers to actually finish and share their own projects. The highlight this week and my primary focus has been enhancing the world building tool. This is something I started talking about last week and just continued to put focus on this week as well. This is a product that I'm super passionate about just based on my own interests. I've always loved trying to think through the story and levels that will go into a game and to make compelling and interesting characters with their own motivations. This is just something that I've always loved, and I think the world building tool really helps with that and fits right into that interest. I know I'm not alone in that interest, and I imagine there's probably quite a large market of people that would be interested in using a tool like this. And I think this also lends itself quite well to having a premium or paid tier in the future. So for those reasons, I feel like the world building tool has a lot of potential and is a great opportunity for me to continue to focus on. So this is a devlog after all. Let's get into the updates and talk about what I've released out to everybody this week. We have been working on some improvements to the chat assistant feature that I started showing off last week. Let's just walk through creating a world. I'll use that as an opportunity to kind of show off what it does differently now. So if you have a blank world now, you'll notice that Dan is omnipresent or available on every page. Previously, it was only shown when you were looking at the summary for a specific thing within your world. So now you have a running conversation available on all pages. That conversation remains kind of stored for you in static as you move around. If I ask Dan a question here on the home page, and then I, for instance, move over here and I was like, what was that? What was it that I asked him earlier? That conversation is still present. In addition, the response can now be copied in. So you'll notice he talks about some areas, an enchanted area in the desert. So we could create this location, but there's now an opportunity to copy the response into the summary of what you're looking at. So you can say, just give me a summary for the Whispering Sands location. You'll see that he does that. And now you've got a quick and convenient button to copy that into the summary editor that you're looking at, where you can save it. We're also looking at structured responses for the things that Dan says. So let's make a query, for instance, that says, make up a character who lives near the Whispering Sands. And you'll notice that he gives just a plain text response, but we've started trying to use like a structured response instead so that we can start to parse out and understand when a character is being talked about or when a location is being talked about. So in this example, you'll see it says meet Zira El Sandara, which is what we saw over in the user interface over here. But behind the scenes, we've started adding a more structured response to what's actually being talked about. So notice we've got characters as a type and locations as a type. So I can start to understand, oh, we're talking about Zira El Sandara, or we're talking about the Whispering Sands. And so the vision is that just like we had the update summary button, when we're on a summary page, we might start to see buttons now that correspond to create this character or create this location. Just something quick and easy that lets people start to get a world up fast. Let's see what else. Oh yeah, and then there's just been like a whole slew of quality of life improvements. So now if you like click away, the thing closes. It has a nice animation for when it slides in and out. And then there's a keyboard shortcut so that you can chat just by saying Command Enter. So I can type a thing in here, and then without having to use my mouse, I can just quickly say Command Enter. But I can still say Enter and write multi-lined things. So those are some of the improvements as they relate to Dan. And let's see, we also have started creating enhancements to the relationships, or really just allowing relationships at all between the different entities within your world. So let's go ahead and make Zira El Sandara and maybe a group as well. So let's say we just create like a faction and some events that happen in our timeline, just so that I have some stuff to demonstrate how these relationships can start to play out. So let's say Zira is part of the rebel faction and played a part in the rebellion as well. You can update that, and then her page will start to show the events that she's participated in, and will show the groups that she's associated with as well. And then those relationships play back the other way. So as you start to build up a group of people, they'll all be listed here, and you can manage that on a settings page. So for now, I let you relate groups to people. I let you relate people to events as well, like you see here. And then events can take place in locations. So say, for instance, Victory Day is celebrated at the Whispering Sands. You can do that as well. And you'll see these events listed in both places. And then finally, I've created like a hierarchical relationship between locations. Imagine you've got like a region and like a city within that, and then a neighborhood within that, or maybe even a street, so that you can kind of start to get smaller and smaller and more focused. You can now nest locations in the same way. So let's imagine there's a neighborhood in the Whispering Sands. So say we do that. For now, all of that would have, or previously, all of that would have shown up on the home page. What you can start to do instead now is to say this is located within the Whispering Sands. And then you'll get a description here that links back to the parent location. And then the parent location will show localities as well. So you can start to nest those as deep as you want. And then notice too that the smaller locality is now removed from the home page to kind of clean that up and not let you end up with some huge volume of things. Let's see. Beyond the relationships between entities, we've also made some improvements to the new world form. If I come in here now and try to create a world where the name already exists, there's a bit of validation that helps explain that. And then I've also added some descriptors here as well. The slug in particular was something that people were kind of asking me about when I was showing them how this worked, or asking them to create worlds. So I've got an example here that says like, hey, this is because we're trying to make a shareable permanent link for your world, and it needs to be unique. So there's a bit of validation now to kind of make sure that that is unique and that it matches convention, and it'll automatically get generated based on the name you put in the title. And if it's already in use, it'll do something nice like suggest putting a 2 at the end, just to let you have some uniqueness. And then the last thing I think the last thing is, let's hop back into Sands of Arcane. The last thing I've done is just added the ability to edit start and end dates for your events as well. I created this form to start to support renaming, but I just didn't include these dates. So you can edit those now and save them and see them start to show up on your timeline. So that was our demo. Let's talk about what's coming up next. I'm really interested in making art available or part of the world in more thoughtful ways. Right now you have art as a collection of images you can upload and associate directly to the world, but I want to start to make them a little more meaningful. So you could have like a portrait for a person in your world, or you could have a map for a location in your world, and then have those kind of show up in slightly different ways. So that's one thing I want to do. Of course, I also want to make those improvements to the Dan Masters assistant that let you automatically create characters or automatically create locations just with the click of a button based on when we identify those types of things happening in the conversation. The feedback in the comments is tremendously helpful. If you have ideas about what you want to see, please tell me, because that drives the direction of what I work on. So in that vein, I also want to work on a kind of like a private or progression-based spoiler feature so that you can kind of control the pace or like the order in which people go through your world. The idea is probably that you can just kind of like have it concealed at first and then check it and then start to see it as you go through it in the appropriate order. That way you don't spoil yourself. And then I also want to look at starting to organize things a little better once you've got a higher volume. I want to really load a world up with like 100 locations or 100 events and start to see what that looks like and how we might be able to organize that a little better and make that easier for the creator of the world to present that in a way that they want to. My goal, which I outlined in one of my earlier videos, is to produce a video every week, a blog post once a month, and a new product once a month. These goals are meant to drive the development of an engaged community, improve the volume or improve the traffic that's coming to my site through search, and also help me try to solve the problems that the community is facing and develop a product that actually helps them. So as far as videos go, I'm on course. I've been putting one out every week and I expect to continue to keep that pace. I don't, however, have a blog post for November, so I need one, and I think it probably makes sense to do it on the topic of world building. So if you have any ideas about what you want me to write about, let me know, but you can expect that to probably come out pretty soon here. I also need to try to get myself a product if I want to keep that goal by the end of November as well. And I think that is going to stay in the topic of world building. My thought is that it'll probably just be something that removes or dramatically increases limits on the amount of information you can store in a world or the amount of queries that you can have with Dan. Since those things actually create cost for me in terms of web hosting and what I'm able to offer, I think it just makes sense that that's a good thing to start to charge a customer for if they're a heavy user. For now, though, everything is free, so I'd encourage you to go and check that out. As always, thank you so much for watching and following along on my journey. There are 2 things I want you to do if you are interested in supporting me. First, go to finalparsec.com and explore our tools. Just try one out. Pretty much anything you do on Final Parsec is free, so please just try it out and let me know what you think. That feedback helps me tremendously. And second, if you are a game developer or just somebody that has an idea for a game but you feel stuck or you face challenges, put a comment down below and let me know what those are. I'd love to help and I'd love to hear your journey too. These videos are the best way to keep up with me. They come out every Friday if I can edit fast enough, so please subscribe and make sure that you follow along. And if you like what you see here, please give this a like as well. I think that helps me get more broadly shared in terms of YouTube recommendations and all of that kind of stuff. Thanks again to everybody, and I'll see you again next week.